What's up, guys? Today we got the OnePlus 7 Pro versus the Pixel 7 Pro here. This was a request, and I think this is a pretty good upgrade. It's really going to come down to the cameras. I think the Pixel 7 Pro has much better cameras, of course, but the 7 Pro does have a few things that I think, has an advantage over the 7 Pro. So let's get started. I just did a video on the 7 Pro. This phone is very cheap. You can find it for well under 200 bucks, but typically they're going to range from around 200 to 250, depending on if you go with the 7 Pro or the 7T Pro. So let's go ahead and talk about the build quality on both these phones. Both these phones have really good build quality. Let me wipe down on the 7 Pro here. And you guys can see they're both glass and metal devices here. Very beautiful devices here. Both, well, technically you do have a IP rating on the 7 Pro. Like, I've gotten this thing wet, but it's not an official one. The Pixel does have an official one, but you can get this phone wet. And they both feel really good in the hand. They're honestly about the same height, and then for size, for weight, they both kind of feel the same pretty much. I do think the 7 Pro is a little bit more comfortable to hold in the hand. It's not as wide as the Pixel for me with smaller hands, but it really varies on the person here. Let's talk about the displays on both of these phones. So you have two really nice displays. This is where the 7 Pro sort of makes itself unique. It has no punch hole or no notch or anything. It's able to do that with the pop-up selfie cam here, as you guys can see. So that's how they're able to achieve that, and it's a very beautiful display. It's 1440p, 6.67 inches, 90 hertz, HDR10 plus, 516 for the PPI, and then the Pixel does also have a very good display as well. They're both curved displays as well too. The Pixel has an LTPO 120 hertz HDR10 plus display, and it is also a 1440p resolution, and then 512 for the PPI. So, again, the same size displays for both of these phones, essentially. They do have slight different designs. As you can see, the Pixel does have a more wide design, and the OnePlus has a little bit more, it looks like a little bit more curvier, but it's more narrow. So they do have slightly different aspect ratios. Yeah, I just really love the 7 Pro. That's why I've always held it as one of my favorite older flagships, because it just gives you a very unique viewing experience that you really can't get on most phones these days. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the specs a little bit more. With the 7 Pro, we are running the Snapdragon 855 chip, and with the Pixel, we do have the Tensor G2 chip on here. You have Snapdragon 855. This version is like 6 gigs of RAM, and it's 128 gigs. So you can find ones for like 256 very easily. This is one I got stuck with because that was the first one I got when it came out. But yeah, so the 7 Pro, no SD card support, of course, and then the Pixel does also have, this one has 12 gigs of RAM, and then you also have 128 gigs of internal storage on this one as well too. As far as speed, both these phones are pretty fast. The OnePlus 7 Pro, believe it or not, does have a slight advantage when it comes to games being a little bit more optimized, but when it comes to speed, I tell people all the time, the Snapdragon 855 chip is still very, very fast. As you guys can see, just in casual use, it's able to keep up. The 7 Pro having 90 hertz makes it still feel smooth. Now, it's not as smooth as 120 hertz, but you guys could definitely see that there. We go ahead and open up Subway Surf again, and you guys can see it's really not too far behind. Boom. Now, the pretty cool thing about the 7 Pro is it has really good optimization. So games like PUBG actually are able to play at 90 frames, and the Pixel 7 Pro cannot play at 90 frames yet, at least. So you have pretty good optimization for gaming on this phone. Alright, so as you guys can see here, the Pixel does a great job with gaming HDR Extreme. You can see it runs very smooth, but you have technically higher settings on the you can play at 90 frames, which is pretty cool on here. So it feels even smoother. It feels super buttery smooth, being able to play at 90 frames. And you can also, for like Call of Duty Mobile, it's also able to do that as well too. So yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and check out the speakers, and we'll go ahead and max the volume out. So as you guys can hear, the Pixel does have just louder speakers than the 7 Pro. Way better bass. No, that's not what I want. Yeah, so it is just a fuller sound on the Pixel for sure. So I do want to talk about some other additional features. So the fingerprint scanner I actually do prefer on the 7 Pro. It is just much faster. It was one of those instant ones. The 7 Pro, it does have a much improved fingerprint scanner, but you still have to apply a bit of pressure to it. But it does work pretty fast. So it's not a bad fingerprint scanner at all. It's actually a little bit improved there. So I do want to go ahead and talk about something that's also very important. This phone will be getting Android 12, and then it will be getting security patches. This phone will have a much longer lifespan cycle as far as software, so that's also something to consider. This is running the Oxygen OS, which is very smooth. It's pretty clean. I've always been a big fan of it. It's just a very clean OS, and you do have, you know, a bit of customization and advanced features and stuff like that. But the Pixel is the complete opposite. It's stock Android. It's very, very clean, and it just works flawlessly. It's one of the smoothest, you know, operating or skins, I guess you can say, for Android. I think it's just really fluid, the way the animations feel and everything like that. So I'm a big fan of the Pixel. This is probably one of the biggest deciding factors is going to be cameras. So I think you're getting a pretty good camera upgrade with the Pixel. So this does have a 50 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto. It does 5x optical zoom, and then you also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. There's a macro mode, and it shoots in 4K 60 on the front and back with a 10.8 megapixel ultra wide selfie cam. The 7 Pro, on the other hand, has a 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, that's 3x, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60 on the back, and then only 1080p 30 on the front. So check out these side-by-side stills. Let me know what you guys think about the image quality. Here's a video on the Pixel. Five times. Here's a video on the 7 Pro. Alright, so for battery life, even though I've had my 7 Pro for a while, this phone has always been very good with battery life. And by 7 Pro, I mean the Oneplus. It's just a really, really good phone as far as battery life goes. I've never had this phone really die on me. I took it to CES. I took it on vacation. I've never had an issue with this phone dying. And it charges really fast because it has 30-watt charging. And the battery is somewhat big at 4,000 milliamps. Not super big by today's standards. But the Pixel does have a 5,000 milliamp battery. You will get slightly better battery life, but this does charge slower at 23 watts. But yeah, this does have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, something that the 7 Pro actually lacks, guys. So there's no type of wireless charging on the 7 Pro, so keep that in mind too. So I really like these phones. If you think about getting a Pixel 7 Pro and you have a 7 Pro, I think it's a great upgrade. I think it really comes down to the cameras, right? And then you get longer software support also, and you might like stock Android. So there's a lot of upside to it. But the biggest thing is, if the cameras didn't impress you, then I would hold on to my 7 Pro, OnePlus 7 Pro for a little bit longer. But if the cameras did impress you, I would make that move because that's one of the biggest things. As far as like power-wise, the 7 Pro is still pretty powerful. So yeah, so take that into consideration, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.